So, Louis, thank you for coming on and thank you for being with us today. So, yes. So, yeah, so Louis, if you kind of just take us through what the status of the AFCFTA is as at today. I know you work closely with the Secretariat, so if you could just walk us through what the current status is, such that we would be up to speed on where we are in Africa. Thank you, Louis.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you just come back again? Sorry.
Okay, so I was saying that you should just give us a status update. Where are we on the AFCFTA?
Okay, all right. Thank
Our
you very much.
conversation today is on family businesses and how they can harness the opportunities that the AFCFTA provides within West Africa and also Africa at large. So you want to give us the status update on where we are?
All right. So the important thing is that I think closely you have about 40, close to 47 to 49 other countries that are fully members. And that is on the trade side, the goods side. And the services, I think they are also close about same 40 plus. That is in terms of countries that are full members. There have been a lot of activities in the area of guided trade. That is where currently things are really cooking. In the area of guided trade, what is happening is that countries are coming together to push the intra-African trade. In other words, they are not waiting for individual countries to produce and then give up their offers. But what they are doing now is that, look, 7 countries or 3 countries can come up and say, look, we want to do a special targeted trade among ourselves. We have this lineup of products, and we want to make sure that between these 2 countries or 3 countries, we want to make sure that your goods will come, my goods will come, and we have to ensure that every goods is sold. That is how the guided trade initiative is. It's helping. Ghana, I think, rigged about $60 million, the first one. And Ghana did another one with Tanzania. And the first one, the AFCTA Secretariat tried to referee it. There were about 7 countries that were involved. And so it has been very, very effective. Another important thing that is happening, which is very beneficial, is what we call the after trading companies. The AFCTA Secretariat realized that, look, it's all about doing business and trading and export and import. So why don't we put those private sector companies together, call them after trading companies, so that these companies can have a common bargain. These companies can have a common competitive and the market accessibility. So for example, if you have internet service providers as one after trading companies, you get them the market, they come together, they look for the market cumulatively. If you are looking at cashew nut suppliers, you put those companies in that industry, that sector together, you get them a market, you get a good offer. That is the nature of how the after trading companies will look like. So that now it's not like they're waiting for one buyer to be looking for the seller somewhere, the seller, no. So that after trading companies will have to be spearheaded by after companies, after organizations within every state party. So if you take Nigeria, your Ministry of Trade is supposed to coordinate that kind of activity. You also look at, if you take Ghana, for example, we have the Ghana After Office that coordinates some of these activities. Another important area which is key, but I'm not seeing a lot of people tapping into, is the AFCFTA tried to secure $1 billion for what we call the Adjustment Facility Fund. That Adjustment Facility Fund is in twofold: to help countries that might be having issues with credit due to the shoring of their tariffs. And then the other part of it is going to support private sector initiatives, companies like your own, my own, every private sector organization. The issue has to do with how it's going to be disbursed. So that is the Adjustment Facility Fund. Then you have the also automotive fund that is about $1 billion as well. With the automotive fund, it's looking at the African automobile industry. This one purely African origin, which means that you might not necessarily be the one to produce the chassis or the engine, but you can be in that value chain. So, for example, if you have a company that is into the tire manufacturing, you fall within that value chain. If you are within maybe the accessories, you fall within the value chain. And so companies must pitch themselves. Companies must pitch themselves. Individuals must pitch themselves. Which sector, which area do I want to be part of the value chain? Which association do I want to join to go for the bargain? Which state department or which sector in my country, which ministry in my country is focused on this? How do I connect with them? These are three key areas that individuals, corporate organizations can assess the importance and benefits of the AFCTA. It will not come to you when you are where you are. You have to go for it because it's a regional organization. So you have to go for it. For example, those in the extractive industry, we are looking at making sure that no mineral leaves Africa unfinished or unprocessed or refined. Where do you find yourself? You have to visit your mining industry to look for that opportunity. For example, if you take the logistics industry, we don't have a lot of what do you call it, maritime or ships that really is moving goods or transporting goods on the sea across Africa. So companies like you in Ghana, we had a company called McDan Trading Company that had an MOU with the Secretariat and said, look, we would like to take up most goods produced within the AFCTA state parties and move them around or transport. That is very, very important. That's the kind of opportunities I'm talking about. Another key area that we have to look at, and everybody have heard that one, and is doing very well, is the payment and settlement system. Initially, 2 years ago, we had about few banks that were on the grid. We had about few central banks as well that were on the switch. Today, there are more than about 10 central banks and several commercial banks across Africa that are really using the Pan-African payment and settlement system. There are a lot of customers that are giving good testimonies about it. And it's very important because it helps cross-border payment. You don't have to struggle to transfer money in a different currency or in the dollar equivalent to another supplier in a different jurisdiction. What you need to do is to pay in Nigerian currency or Mauritius currency or Seychelles currency. You pay in your local currency and I receive it in my local currency. You leave the headache of the settlement to the central bank and then the Afrexim bank perhaps. This is also very, very important. My last point, not the least, is that another key area which I will urge a lot of companies to take interest is the services under AFCTA. It's still untapped. The World Bank estimates about 50% of GDP is going to come from services from among all. You're going to have about 50% of our GDP is coming from the what do you call it? Services. The good news is that under the services you have about 12 sectors, or we call them priority sectors. Transport. I want to take my time to break this down so that you know where you find yourself. You have transport. And the transport, you have maritime, you have road, you have aviation, and then you have rail. All these are areas of investment that there can be JVs or joint ventures, or you can have governments coming together. If you take Ghana, for example, we were doing our railway to our northern part, but because of the coming of AFCTA, we are extending the rail to Burkina Faso. So if Burkina Faso can also join another country to move it closer until we get to Dakar, that is what we mean by these kind of opportunities within the services sector, like transport. I mentioned earlier that McDan Shipping has taken upon itself to have an MOU with the Secretariat. You see that they will be able to ship all goods or take it upon AFCTA goods across Africa, which is good. But we don't have a lot of ships. And then again, if you take road, we are happy to announce that you realize that there is this Lagos, Abidjan, Accra corridor. It's a massive, about 6 lanes road, kind of tunnel system that is going to run between Lagos, Abidjan, Accra. And there's not going to be any traffic. It's going to be very superb. It's going to bring a lot of job creation, a lot of tourism site as well. That is massive. If you go to East Africa, there are other corridors that are also being opened. If you are a contractor or you're a company and you want to take interest, these are available opportunities. Now, if you go to the other services like financial services, Mauritius is good at financial services. It's like a hub for financial services in Africa. Financial services is part of the services under AFCTA, which includes insurance, banks, and then financial institutions, fintechs. So if you are within that space, you have opportunity. You have opportunity, and for example, if you look at banks, the likes of EcoBank is almost across most African countries. Now, Messi, if you look at the area of which is also not tapped fully, is education. Education, health services, sports and culture, which is very, very important. These are all opportunities under the services that companies can be formed, organizations can tap into. Professional services, which is key, which we've not talked about. Professional services is also negotiated under the AFCTA, which involves professionals, drivers, accountants, surveyors, what have you. So, for example, if you are in Ghana and you think that the market is choked, the opportunities of job is choked, and you think that I can move to Mauritius to establish my company. If Mauritius says my financial services industry is choked, then I don't need yours. That's fine. The regulatory body will restrict you a bit. But other areas where they would like to receive your services, that means that what you need to do is to be able to move there, because remember, AFCTA is about free movement as well. You have the right to entry, right to establishment. And so it is very, very important to identify which sector you find yourself, which organization, which startup, which industry you find yourself, and then to be able to know what are the terms that those countries offer, what are the market accessibilities in place, what are the logistical opportunities or support that I need to. We can't just say I have cashew nut and that you're going to benefit from the AFCTA. No, I have cashew nut. Which market do I send to? How do I take it there? How do I get free movement? How do I get visa waived off? These are key issues that the individual or companies are supposed to find out and follow up. The AFCTA Secretariat and even your ministries of trade are limited in terms of scope and operation. My last point is in one of the areas that I would like us to really look at, which is very, very important, and that has to do with urging our governments to engage in productive, what we call factor productivity. The whole issue we are talking about the AFCTA. With that factor productivity, we are going to be at where we are. And what do I mean by factor productivity? It's part of the indicators of the AFCTA assessment or barometer. Factor productivity means that how are we deploying the labor, capital, land, entrepreneurship, technology, these are factors of production to boost and produce in the economy, goods and services. If we don't produce, if we don't have a lot of factories, manufacturing, industrialization, we are not going to still export. We are going to export our raw unfinished product or less value added product outside Africa for less fair trade. And so it is important that we produce. If we don't produce, we can't export. We will still be import dependent African economy. So it is embedded upon all of us here on this webinar, wherever we find ourselves, to urge our government to support the private sector to establish factories and produce. Again, if they can produce, the AFCTA opens up what we call the comparative advantage opportunity, whereby I know that maybe Kenya is very good in producing flowers. I don't need to spend so much resources when I know that I cannot. To allow Kenya to do more, and then I focus on my comparative strength. In Ghana, for example, Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, everybody was going on its way in terms of cocoa, but we came together to have a bargaining price, because after all, if you take the revenue from chocolate across the world, it is neither from Ghana nor Cote d'Ivoire. It is in Netherlands. That is serious. So why don't we look at a comparative advantage? Why would Nigeria import wheat from Iran? Or why would Nigeria import salt from Brazil when Ghana is next door? Why would Ghana import wheat from somewhere when Nigeria is next door? We need to look at our comparative advantage trends so that we enable our private sectors, enable our businesses, entrepreneurs to really connect, to really network, to really tap into those comparative vacuums that we have created. This is what we need to do to be able to benefit from the agreement. The agreement in itself is not the end. It is a means to the end. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Louis. That was such a, very illuminating, very educative status update on the AFCFTA. And rightly, just as you said, which is why we are here, because the family sector, the family businesses that we serve, they account for about 70 to 80% of global GDP, and they create the most jobs. So whether it's the conglomerate, it started from the mom and pop stores, and you have them into big, massive enterprises today. They account for over 50 to 80% of all jobs across the, globally, and Africa as well. So really very, very important that this understanding of what the AFCFTA stands to benefit these businesses. And just if you're talking about diversification as well, is very, very important, but just harnessing the value that you get. You find out a lot of the concentration that we have is a lot of exports out of the country into Europe, Asia, or
Just a
North
minute.
America.
Sorry. Mercy, sorry, just to cut, just a minute. I just wanted to add tourism, which is one of the services. And tourism, World Bank also projects, it brings a lot of revenues. If you take tourism destinations in Africa, you can account that we have two best destinations apart from Seychelles and Mauritius. There are others that are springing up. Now, I want to ask you, how practical can we be when we come to tourism? We have to be very scientific about tourism, what do you call it, build up or diversification. I'm saying this because it's really a hard currency earner. If we really develop our tourism sector in infrastructure, the people themselves, the culture. Look, it's not because my friends are from Seychelles, but I keep saying that when I entered Seychelles, one first message I got was that this country is really ready for tourism. Why? Right from the airport to they have the cattle range, which is having these cable cars. But some Nigerians will like to take flights, go as far beyond Africa, travel thousands of kilometers, just even to go and patronize a desert. And yet you have this here, but you're not patronizing. If you come to places like Accra, we have the equator, the center of the imaginary line passing through Accra, Tema. But I can say that if you come to where I'm talking about, you will not see any edifice, any investment edifice that shows that this is the center of the earth. If such certain countries like Maldives or whatever, or other countries outside Africa, were the center of the earth, we will do all we can to pay our hard currencies to go and patronize their services. Why don't we harness intra-African tourism? Because tourism has value chains, like job chains, like the tourism guide. You can get job there. You look at the hospitality, hotels and restaurants, they're all part of it. And the destination site itself. So I think it's one of the areas I'm pushing so much, tourism, because whatever you do, these have come to stay. And it's about time we conserve our hard currency by really developing our tourism sectors with infrastructure and then the culture of the people to really patronize their own offer. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Louis. I mean, these are fantastic contributions for where we could innovate and where we could look for ways to make it better. Really, just thinking about it, I'm just thinking about, if families, enterprising families want to innovate into the future and tap into the potentials in the future, then, these are areas that would be very viable, especially where there is passion and there is desire to get it done. So it's not really going about retooling the wheel. the existing will, but just looking at what are the other areas that we could metamorphose as a family and as a business into, that we'll be able to have first mover advantage and also set the tone and set the pace for that. So thank you so much for the highlight you've made on tourism, Louis, and please keep doing what you are doing. What I would like to say is that we do have challenges. I mean, just sitting here in Nigeria and looking at all the things that all the benefits that family businesses or even general enterprises could take advantage of, you would be looking at, do we have cohesion between the private sector players as well as the government? Because we know that the AFCFTA is largely focused on government agencies championing it. So do we have that engagement? Do we still have the steam for it? I know that about 2 years ago there was a lot of energy exerted in this. Is that energy still there, or has that energy waned? And how can we keep the conversations going and keep the energy? And these are the kind of things that we need to bring to the fore. But in Nigeria right now, we are struggling with infrastructural challenges, healthcare, education, bad roads, and insecurity. So there's a lot of challenges that seems that we need to sum out, and also with capital investment. But just having the right governance system in place probably would help us to be able to harness this benefit, and not necessarily for us today, but in building that secured future for the children of tomorrow, for the children of now, today, and the ones that are already becoming young adults. So these are key issues that as practitioners, as family business owners, as advisors, that we need to keep an eye on, and also make sure that we stay on top of these issues. So thank you so much once again, Louis, for sharing your insights on that. We are rounding up this session now. Louis, where do we go from here? I know we've tried to look at the AFCFTA, and I know that it's the IFC, International Financial Centers, is something that you have a very good grounded understanding and knowledge around. So how do you marry it? How do you marry the AFCFTA, what it's supposed to do for the continent, and on the other hand, what the IFCs are to do? And just give us your concluding comments as well after you've discussed this, after you've made your views on this question.
Well, I mean, thank you. For me, I would like to look at it in general, especially roping in regional financial institutions as well, regional financial houses as well. Where do we go from here? It is not an agreement. The AFCTA is a wealth package for Africans. We have to embrace that so that we will begin to look at the legislations, we begin to look at, yes, I agree with compliance, we begin to look at how our systems really are ready or prepared to really accommodate investment. For example, we are now pushing what we call Africa Direct Investment. That is where we're heading towards now. There's going to be a program in Rwanda called the Africa Business Forum. It is like the African type of economic forum. It is open to businesses everywhere. Now, I raise the regional financial institutions because the Afro-Exim Bank and African Development Bank, for example, have been tasked to finance activities on the continent. These are banks that we are told our governments have bigger shares. But I tell you, Mercy, I personally sometimes worry because, yeah, they do well, but I don't see much of their impact when it comes to helping grow business and direct accessibility of support to companies or startups. They focus too much on conferences, programs that are more of theoretical. For example, if you have a bank in the European Union, EU, an EU bank is giving a company in Spain a less credit interest of less than about 2%. And you come to Africa and a regional bank that is supposed to finance AFCFTA import and export, or finance agribusiness or what have you, is giving interest rate of over 7% to 8%. If you compare that country, that company in Spain or in Europe or European Union and one African market, give them 5 years, there's nowhere that the company under AFCTA or within the African environment will do better. So these regional banks should really look and rewrite their portfolios. They should look at exactly their financial support packages. If they are channeling it through national banks or national commercial banks, it should be very, very flexible and moderate. I give you an example of MasterCard Foundation. Have you observed what they are doing currently? MasterCard is not an African product. It is an American product. But what are they doing? They are directly engaging businesses and startups and cushioning them with capital to enable them to be on their feet. Is that what our regional banks are doing? No. We need to look at, because without trade finance, it's going to be very difficult for the export and import and productive basis of our economies to thrive vis-a-vis trade. And we'll always be doing what we call, because we, especially by extension, when we don't have any import substitution policies across business environment. I would like to add finally, my point is that there is a lot of growth in fintechs, and I support the growth of fintechs because we are estimating that we are losing over $5 billion to other multinationals if we don't grow our fintechs, if we don't grow our digital economy. Now there is a protocol on digital trade and then women and youth, but the digital trade, I keep saying, you can never have a strong digital base when you don't have the foundation which has to do with productivity. You can call for e-ticket to travel, but you can never have an e-aeroplane. If you don't manufacture that aeroplane, you will still be an import economy. That is one of the things I urge fintechs to really continue to grow. I urge startups. If you are a startup for more than 6 years, know that you are not a startup. There is a problem. You need to find out why. Finally, we need to look at the AFCTA as a wealth sharing, a wealth transferring opportunity. And how do we do that? When we begin to network well, when we begin to move our capital from country to country, when we begin to patronize our services, and then we can be able to say that, look, when it comes to input manufacturing, I don't have that upper hand, so I will import from outside Europe. The next step is building our technology from how small it is. Let's develop appropriate technologies and utilize them. Thank you, and I want to wish all my friends and all my colleagues and all my colleague speakers very well. Thank you for inviting me as well.
Thank you so much, Louis. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that everyone that has listened in and just hear you talk, like I said, Louis is an expert, is also a very passionate Pan-African voice. So Louis, thank you so much for making our time for us. And for anyone that wants to reach out to Louis, Louis is available. He's already put his email. You could always send him an email. He is available. I've never seen someone that is this available when it comes to providing the relevant guidance in navigating the AFCFTA, navigating the issues. So whether you want to come in to support the initiatives across, or whether you want to just take one initiative, just want to understand where the AFCFTA is and how you can drive those initiatives with your local trade ministries and all that, Louis is available to be able to help you to package, to put that all together. And you can also reach out to us as well, and we will make sure that we also do the appropriate networking to link you up with Louis. So Louis, thank you so much for your time. I know that you are indeed pressed. Yeah, so that brings us to the conclusion of this session.